Well, within government, crime and policing is a matter for the Home Office, of course, a department that faced a barrage of flack last week over its handling of asylum hotels. It has never been a cushy ministerial posting. Back in 1942, the then Home Secretary Herbert Morrison said the corridors of the Home Office were paved with dynamite, liable to blow up a ministerial career at any moment. And a critical glimpse into the department's inner workings came last week when, thanks to the Freedom of Information Act, a report written by the former Home Office advisor, now Tory MP Nick Timothy, was published. I've been speaking to Mr. Timothy about it, but began by asking him for his thoughts in the wake of last night's train attack and how the government might respond.
Well, I don't think people need to hear what they've had, actually. I don't think people want thoughts and prayers. I think they want leadership and a serious plan to deal with disorder and lawlessness and violence. And it just wasn't like this when you and I were growing up, Ben. I think we've become tolerant of the unacceptable in this country, and people have had enough.
The response from the emergency services in this case was extraordinary. But do you think that what you're describing is a symptom of something going wrong at the Home Office, which of course is in charge of crime, policing, dealing with the country's security?
I think it's much deeper than that. Some of this is social. Yes, the Home Office is responsible for crime and policing. You've got the Ministry of Justice, which is responsible for sentencing and prisons and probation. So the whole of government really has to take a look at how it's approaching this kind of thing. But we also need to be thinking about things like family breakdown, the way in which we deal with kids who are starting to maybe go down the wrong track when they're at school.
And this cuts, as you say, right across Whitehall. But there has been a huge amount of focus on the Home Office, particularly regarding immigration policy in the last little while. The department is still not yet fit for purpose, according to Shabana Mahmood, echoing a phrase, of course, made famous by another Home Secretary, John Reid, 20 years ago. A report you wrote on it for the previous government has been in the headlines in the last few days. Do you agree with that summation?
So I was asked to review the Home Office by Rishi Sunak and Suella Braverman when they were Prime Minister and Home Secretary, respectively. I'd worked in the Home Office between 10 and 15, and this work was done in the beginning of 2023. The Home Office might be different compared to then. But what I found when I reviewed the department was actually very shocking. So if you take the immigration system, there was a complete lack of clarity even about who was ultimately responsible for the way it was operating. So there was no one official in charge of the system. There were really confused lines of accountability. The data systems were very poor. And the thing is, the immigration system is highly complex, and you're dealing with people who are not necessarily compliant or truthful. You're dealing with foreign states who sometimes don't want to cooperate and take back their illegal immigrants or foreign criminals. But that doesn't mean that this can't be done. From an organisational perspective, it just felt like a complete mess.
But all the problems you were describing were happening on the previous Conservative government's watch. Why was it allowed to happen, to get into the state that shocked you so much?
I think after COVID, a lot of the productivity in things like asylum casework had fallen behind quite significantly. One part of the immigration system might identify that somebody isn't compliant with the terms of their visa. That would be handed over to another part who would then be responsible for making sure that they left the country. That was not happening in a smooth and structured way. There's a big divide between the policy officials and the people who actually have the operational know-how. That's one of the big problems I identified. But the data in the system is very poor as well.
It sounds like you and the current Home Secretary, Shabana Mahmood, agree on quite a lot when it comes to the state of the Home Office now. Do you have recommendations for how she should go about trying to change it?
Shabana Mahmood has one of the best permanent secretaries in Whitehall in Antonio Romeo. But I think what Shabana Mahmood has said, which I very strongly agree with, is that the civil service is there to execute the policies of their political masters, and elected politicians are not going to succeed if we have a dysfunctional civil service working with them.
And in terms of stopping the use of asylum hotels, stopping the small boats, again, do you think that the Home Office is equipped to tackle both of those in a way that you feel needs to happen?
The thing is, when it comes to things like the accommodation of illegal immigrants and people claiming asylum, that is going to be a problem regardless of how you do it, whether it's in big military sites or whether it's in hotels or whether it's in houses of multiple occupancy. The issue is stopping the crossings in the first place and massively reducing the number of people coming into the country illegally and claiming asylum. The previous government had the Rwanda scheme, but this government doesn't have any kind of disincentive for those migrants at all. So it looks to me like the numbers are going to keep coming, and that means there's going to be a huge crisis in how we accommodate those people.
Finally, is there an argument for taking the immigration responsibilities out of the Home Office and putting it in a new department with a new cabinet minister?
This is an argument that goes around on a regular basis. My view is that it's better to fix the Home Office than to do that. If you break these things out of the Home Office, then you lose the quite obvious linkages between the existing responsibilities of the Home Office: counter-terrorism, security against state-based threats, crime and policing, tackling illegal immigration and controlling legal immigration. What I suggested was that the security minister should be made a cabinet minister and akin to the chief secretary to the treasury as a kind of number two. That would take a lot of the pressure off the Home Secretary by leaving the national security work largely to them, so that the Home Secretary could focus much more on immigration and crime and policing.
The Conservative MP and former Home Office advisor Nick Timothy.